clash between vegetarians and meat eaters has torn a small Wisconsin town apart. What the agents find is a convoluted mess that somehow miraculously leads right back to the mythology.
Mulder has the opportunity to come face to face with Deep Throat's murderer, but is it everything we thought it would be?
This is not happening.
Gary Kane, 16 years old, high school junior. C student, first string varsity football. Member of the local 4-H club. Not one of Wisconsin's more remarkable kids, but still the apple of his mother's eye.
What does that mean?
Nobody knows.
What's the police report say?
The victim received a phone call and left his home. He was discovered in the woods in his underwear 12 hours later. He's been unable to give a coherent statement.
Any evidence of sexual assault?
No.
Does it seem like it might have been a schoolboy prank?
The other victims have had to be sedated and hospitalized since their ordeals. They're reportedly hysterical with fear.
Victims? You mean there have been others?
One in eastern Wisconsin, one 3 towns away. Both with the same words written in black magic marker.
What's your interest in this?
Well, the local sheriff in Delta Glen, Wisconsin, thinks he knows what's been happening to these kids.
What's that?
He thinks they've been possessed.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am your host, Mike, and with me today is Andrew, as always. How are you, Andrew?
I'm well. Hey, Mike, we're going to the museum.
The Red Museum?
Did you get your tickets? Did you pre-buy them?
I did.
Excellent. I brought my camera. I'm going to take some pictures, and then I'm going to go to the gift shop. I'm super excited.
What do you think they have for the gift shop here?
I think they have little stuffed
Like lettuce?
animal cows.
Cows in protective shielding, or
No,
what?
I think like keychains and, PETA stickers.
Okay.
I think it's all very tame. I think it's very optimistic.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We all love our cows. Well, we are talking about Red Museum today, ladies and gentlemen, written by Chris Carter and directed by Win Phelps.
His only turn in the chair.
Yeah. He does all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
With what he's got.
With what he's got. It's so true. No bones. Not a fan of this episode.
Interesting episode.
Mm-hmm.
So a short little backstory here. Chris Carter and the producer of Picket Fences had this strange idea of doing a crossover episode for each show. It blows my mind that that was even on the table.
Well, they talked in a parking lot, apparently.
Yeah.
They were like, hey,
it was just this off-the-cuff idea, and the idea was that each show would have their own episode that related to each other.
Yeah.
So apparently they were really excited about it. They got everyone involved except for the execs over at CBS.
Yeah. Like,
and when they caught wind of it, they put the kibosh on it real quick. Because I guess Picket Fences was struggling, and they're like, well, this is just going to promote the X-Files, which is already doing fantastic. So
I think that's a super short-sighted view of it. I really think the opposite would have happened. They would have seen Picket Fences on X-Files and be like, oh, that's an interesting show.
It would have been at least some interest and been like, hey, maybe I'll go check this other show out. But
you know how many seasons Picket Fences lasted for?
I think it was 4.
It is not 9, that's for sure.
Definitely not 9 with two returning seasons.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they missed out here.
I'm waiting for that Picket Fences reunion show.
Oh, that would be really
reboot.
Good. A really old Tom Skerritt shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, poor Tom Skerritt. Getting up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this episode has caught much disdain from fans and even production crew alike. If I'm not mistaken, Morgan and Wong had some negative things to say. And without diving into it right now, I would agree with them. Some of the concerns that they leveled at it. It's just an episode, isn't it?
This episode suffers from the problem that every other episode we don't like suffers from, in that they try and jam so much into the script. And this is Chris Carter. So, like, he's done some good ones. I don't know why this one's wheels fall off, because there's just so much.
Without spoiling anything, we'll dive into the episode here real quick, but it blows my mind that this is how he wanted to expand the mythology and tie it together and,
Yeah.
bring pieces in that just don't feel like they fit.
Well, it's a question of what story
this
do you
is
want to
just
tell,
strange.
right? Like you know what? I think we'll probably be teasing at the details as we go through the story.
For sure.
So we probably don't need to
For
dive
sure.
in just yet.
So let's go into it.
Let us
You
visit the museum,
All right.
opening the door, looking in the foyer. There's a few instructional, educational displays.
Grab your beef pamphlets. The camera pulls in on a sign that says JSD Beef. Cattle are being hoarded into a building. A sudden quick cut shows the meat plant, slicing rib cages, people hard at work processing the beef for sale and distribution. The shift ends and a woman heads home to her 2 boys. They're watching TV as she arrives. After some quick hellos, she asks them to order a pizza while she showers. As she undresses in the bathroom, we see a man's eye watching her, seemingly from behind the mirror. The phone rings and the older son answers. He heads outside quickly, telling his brother he'll be back in 5. Later that evening, the woman is on the phone with authorities. He has not yet come back. The next morning, in the woods nearby, the teenager staggers, frightened and without clothes, save for his underwear. Stumbling onto a road, some police spot him and try to help. He seems incoherent and doesn't speak. As the boy turns, the police see scrawled on his back the words, "He is one," in big black letters. Credits.
Listen,
How do you feel about this?
it's not bad. Like it's setting
not
the
bad.
tone. Even from the opening, though, like it works. That peeping Tom thing, like that is the plot line that they could probably do without.
Yeah.
Like,
But just to put everyone in perspective here, they have given us 3 plot lines
yeah.
to start this fucking episode already.
Yeah.
So it's like, Jesus Christ, here we go.
If you got a point to make about something, a whistle to blow, drugging kids and writing "he is one" on the back of them is probably the weirdest way to do it. Like,
Yeah.
letter to the
Well,
editor? I don't know.
The guy's a creep anyway, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Fair.
After the credits, Mulder and Scully are going over the case in their office. Nobody knows what the saying could mean. He has not been able to give a coherent statement yet, and they're talking about Gary. There have been other victims, all hysterical with fear. 1 in eastern Wisconsin and 3 towns away, all with the letters. Dun, dun, dun. The local sheriff thinks he knows what's happening. He thinks they've been possessed. We cut to a police cruiser. The sheriff is driving the agents to town, Delta Glen, Wisconsin. He's telling them about the Church of the Red Museum, a bunch of vegetarians who took over a ranch and turned 500 head of beef cattle into pets rather than process them. The sheriff is giving the facts, but doesn't seem personally offended by the group. As they arrive, we see a group of churchgoers, all in white clothes with red turbans, walk by. Would you call them turbans?
Yes.
That's what I'd put on there.
They are
Okay.
definitely turbans. Well, they are X-Files version of turbans in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They seem peaceful, and Scully points out they seem unlikely to commit the acts the sheriff described. They enter the church, which is essentially a cleared-out barn, folding chairs facing forward to a man, their leader, Odin, a large projector screen behind him. He prays and begins typing on a keyboard. A woman with him begins reading his words. Today is a blessing from our Lord and Master who awaits his flock in this time. As he types, she relays the information, speaking of them being the enlightened who must bring the teachings of the skills for survival to mankind. Mulder whispers to Scully, the walk-ins, they're believers in soul transference, enlightened spirits who have taken possession of other people's bodies. The group begins chanting prayers with the speaker at key moments, and it brings back my days in Catholic Mass. Without warning, Odin begins typing about 3 people witnessing the Mass who do not believe. We encourage them to open their hearts and minds to our teachings. They who slaughter the flesh slaughter their own souls and must be taught the way. Ooh.
Sick burn. So this is
And
our man.
without speaking a word.
This is our man, Mark Rolston.
Drake!
Drake.
It would have been ideal if the woman who was speaking the words was Vasquez. That would
Jenna
have been
Goldstein?
perfect. Yeah. Jenna Goldstein.
That would have been a pretty sick combination.
I would have loved it.
So they had to cast somebody for this role. He's fine. Yeah. He's
Does a good job.
Doing his thing. I mean,
it's unfortunate because it's such a subdued role. I think, seeing him in things like Aliens as Drake, he's much more animated, or not even greatly more animated, but just something with a little bit more emotion is always interesting. But he does a good job here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been 8 years since he's been in Aliens, so this is a way for him to give himself a new dimension as an actor. It's a different role for him, a peaceful, prophetic man. They're using the character as, he's our bad guy right up until we learn that he can't be the bad guy. So fine. This whole setup is a bit strange.
We go to Gary's home. The agents are with the young man, who only remembers a little. He felt a spirit enter him, possibly an animal spirit. Something came over him. Mulder inquires who called him, but the boy can't remember. Scully looks around the house. Nothing seems out of place. She bumps into Stevie, the younger brother, and asks him some questions. As she does, someone is peering at them from behind a wall, a pinhole. Mulder and the sheriff leave, discussing the case.
Has this boy ever been in any trouble?
Gary?
Yeah.
No, I've known him since he was a kid. He's the same age as my son. He's done some beer drinking, but he's just your basic 16-year-old, at least he was.
You see a notable difference in him?
Yeah. Gary Kane lived for football. He's a damn good athlete, too. I won't even suit up.
The Red Museum, how are they treated by the local citizens?
Nobody much cares for him.
But are they ever singled out? Shop owners refusing to sell to them? Stuff like that?
Well, there's a reasonable amount of tension, but most folks are happy to just try to avoid him.
Can you recommend a good motel in the area?
Sure. That means you're going to stay on for a bit. You think there might be something to this?
Well, I want to run a background check on the church and this guy Odin. If you could just show us a good motel, maybe point out a good place to eat.
You come to the right place for that.
Mulder, ribs like these, I'd say the Church of the Red Museum has his work cut out for it. He started to tell me about walk-ins, but I'm not sure if I grasped the finer points.
It's kind of a new age religion based on an old idea that if you lose hope or despair and want to leave this mortal coil, you become open and vulnerable.
To inhabitation by a new spirit.
A new enlightened spirit. According to the literature, Abe Lincoln was a walk-in, and Mikhail Gorbachev, and Charles Colson, Nixon's advisor.
But not Nixon?
No, not even they want to claim Nixon.
So are you still subscribing to the sheriff's claims of a possession?
I don't know. In the absence of any other plausible explanation, it's a novel theory.
Well, I'll tell you something. I feel kind of weird saying this, but I got the creeps in that apartment today.
Really?
And I want to put a bug in everyone's head. Remember walk-ins. It's going to be a long time before that comes back.
Yeah, in about 4 years when we start discussing walk-ins, we'll be able to reflect back on this episode. But
yeah.
I think that Chris Carter has a little something to say about walk-ins. He had it on his mind. He's like, ooh, I can put this into an episode, but it doesn't matter one bit in the whole entirety of this plot.
Yeah.
It
doesn't quite matter. As Mulder and Scully talk, they discuss possession, but a commotion outside catches their attention. Some local kids are harassing another boy, a follower of the Red Museum, on the street. They begin bullying him and pushing him, and Mulder intervenes. 4 against 1, I got a problem. The kids clock Scully's gun and get nervous, but the ringleader puffs his chest. Call my dad, he'd like to hear about this. Mulder asks who his father is, and he learns it's the sheriff. He calls the kids bluff. The kids leave in a huff, ringleader lightly pushing past Mulder. He and his girlfriend arrive at their house later as he drops her off. She waves goodbye to him as he leaves and heads indoors.
There's more than just a wave there. Come on. They have like this total 90s teenage kiss and it lasts for like 2 minutes.
Who cares?
It's
they
not
are
Mulder and
underage,
Scully.
sir.
Who cares? They're stand-ins
Yes,
for
they
Mulder
kiss.
and Scully.
Like, you're gonna call me later, right? I have my cordless phone. We have caller ID now.
I'm on AOL, baby.
I'm on AOL. I'll catch you on Instant Messenger, baby.
What I really like about that scene is her door doesn't work, apparently. She has to go through his door.
She goes through his door.
The blocking is a bit strange.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So she begins to head inside, but a whining catches her ear. She sees her dog behind some trash cans, sitting there whimpering. As she goes to pet her and console her, she's attacked and subdued by an assailant with chloroform.
I got a problem with the abduction scenario here. I mean,
Okay.
so our man, what's his name? That is the dude that does this horrible business.
Creep dude?
I've got
He doesn't have a name yet.
He hasn't come in yet, but he will.
He will.
Jesus Christ, I have his name written down. Cut all this shit.
It's Gert.
Gert.
I think.
That's right. So our man Gert clearly knows how to make a dog whimper on command and knows that Katie is into whimpering dogs. Because like anybody else who hears a whimpering dog is like,
sounds disgusting.
I know it's horrible, but
that's
honestly,
funny.
like, dog whimpering? I think I'm just going to
Whimper
go
porn?
home. Somebody else's problem.
You know what? This is probably a thing. I'm barking up the wrong tree. I'm going to Google some weird shit tonight just to see whimper porn.
Well, Gert's into some strange stuff. That is definitely
Yes.
clear.
Strange is the nice way to put it.
Yeah. All right. Pray continue. I just had an issue that is like, okay, fine. Nicely done, Gert. You know, that's
Maybe the
convenient.
dog is so well trained it knows it's, the wrong person is nearby.
Well,
This guy's bad.
she knows the dog, though. I suppose
I think that's what I'm saying. I think the dog is hers and he somehow got it and lured her over there because she knew the dog.
Yeah, all right.
So that's just me.
Okay.
I'm not trying to hand wave anything in this episode, but I think that I'll give the dog a pass because they can detect fucking seizures. So
Fair enough.
if they can detect a pedophile.
I will say, though, that this is where the episode begins to lose me because I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, sure.
So she's abducted. The next morning, we see a similar scene. The young girl, half naked, stumbling through the woods as birds incessantly caw. She begins progressively losing her mind, hallucinating a crow pecking at her face, knocking her to the ground where bugs and leaves begin to absorb her. She is one scrawled in big black letters on her back. Back in Mulder's apartment, Scully comes in. She's examined the girl, but she hasn't found much other than trace amounts of an alkaloid substance and a dangerous amount of scopolamine. It's a controlled substance, and whoever has it is likely a doctor. She reads a name off the list, Richard Odin. He left the AMA in '86 over questionable ethics and did not renew his license. They go to Odin's house.
Do you think that the AMA ran roughshod over Doug, formerly Richard Odin, for being a vegetarian?
Probably.
They're like,
what are you doing?
what do you think you're doing with this vegetarianism? Come on, eat a steak like a
Get
real
with
man.
it. Eat meat, you pussy.
What are you against big meat? God.
Big meat. I could see it.
I
could
totally see it. But sure.
Big meat.
Once they mentioned scopolamine, that was definitely a hallucinogenic drug trip that what we were seeing there.
Mm-hmm.
It was not walk-ins. It was not spirits getting your body. That was a drug trip.
Yeah.
Convincingly done, too. I will give it a little bit of credit.
They did a good job in that scene. They go to Odin's house, and Drake comes to the door. They attempt to question him at his residence, but he bars them from entering due to religious beliefs. They are meat eaters and therefore cannot enter. After a quick back and forth of rites, they are interrupted when Mulder turns around to see the congregation of red hats in a Children of the Corn moment standing there behind them.
Or a gender bender moment.
Or a gender bender moment, very true.
Yeah.
They are completely silent. Mulder asks Odin to step outside to place him under arrest. At the sheriff's station, they're interrogating. He begins evading their questions about scopolamine, but eventually relents, saying he knows what it is, but he's never prescribed or administered it. After some more evasion, the sheriff goes off, losing his temper about what's been happening to the kids. Mulder ejects him from the interrogation for a moment, funnily comparing him to his child's behavior. No sooner does this happen that the sheriff barges back in, stating some major problems down the street. The scene shifts to the congregation outside the barbecue joint. A small group of onlookers are present when the sheriff's son pulls up, gets out, and throws a bucket of cow blood onto the Red Museum woman who is speaking. His father yanks him from the scene, visibly upset at the action. An elderly man in a red truck nearby summons Scully over to him. He identifies them as FBI and wants to show them something. So the agents hitch a ride with him.
Okay, so before we run on here, plot conveniently forgets that Odin is in custody. It's like...
Yeah, they just leave him.
They just leave him. They're like, we're going to go off a relic to see some farm. That's cool.
Yeah,
And there is a lot there that I'm sure Odin could provide evidence to the fact that he was nowhere near when any of this happened. They just need to get a little confrontation. This is our first false villain. That this is who we're painted as. This is going to be our candidate for who's responsible, but then the rug is swept out from underneath us. But we never even get to that point. We don't get the alibi. We don't get the demonstration that this is not the guy. We just go and have a little, cow blood moment, and then suddenly the agents are off. I don't know. It's strange, and I wish we just had a moment of resolution of that previous.
No, yeah, I got you. Something to at least show that he was released as a suspect for the moment.
This pasture land belonged to my granddad. He bought it in 1890. I died right over there next to that cattle pen. 82 years old. Just fell off the tractor one morning. My dad worked this piece for the next 40 years. I put in 25 myself before I decided to call it quits. Sold it for 80 times what my granddad paid.
Why'd you sell it?
Yeah, business changed. People changed, too.
In what way?
Competition. Used to get by with 50 milk cows. Now you got to have 500. Used to turn them out to pasture. Now you keep them in pens and grain feed them.
You said you wanted to show us something.
You're looking at it. See those men over there? Well, they're injecting the cattle with something called BST, bovine somatotropin.
A genetically engineered growth hormone.
Shoot them up. The cow will produce 10% more milk. Feed it to beef cattle, and more meat on the hoof. Changed the business. Changed a whole lot of things.
How do you mean?
Well, that fracas in town this afternoon, 10, even 5 years ago, never would have happened. People around here have changed, gotten mean, spiteful, dog-eat-dog. We had 7 rapes here last year by high school boys. Well, this business of the kids being found in the woods, well, I think that you're going to find it all comes from the same root source.
The growth hormone.
Yes, sir.
But those hormones have been proven safe. They've been cleared by the FDA.
Says who? The government?
When Scully says, but the hormones have been cleared by the FDA. They've been proven safe.
Who proved
the
it
man
to you?
scoffs. Yeah, who proved it? The government. Mulder smiles because this is his line, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the old farmer is Robert Cloutier. He was in an iconic Canadian television show called The Beachcombers. He played a character named Relic, who was the antagonist, I suppose. He was the sort of gnarly old dude. He is perfect for this role. This role was written for him, and it's marvelous.
Mm-hmm. We will also see him again in season 3.
Yes. Yeah. Better role, I would argue too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a nod for me on this one. Possibly one of the better moments in the show, because this plot line I can get behind. It's like abandon the walk-in stuff. Just go with bovine growth hormone is bad, and this is what our agents are going to
Still-
crusade to stop. But
Yeah. So we get one last view of the men who are injecting. One of them looks back suspiciously as everyone leaves. Mark Snow's thundering atonal notes tell us he is no good.
he's no good. Well, and you know from that creepy set of glasses, this is our peeping Tom.
Yeah. At night, in a plane, here's where the plot takes another fucking turn.
Legitimately,
In a
though,
plane.
I had issues with this. I remembering this
No.
episode. I know, right? Me. But I remember this episode thinking.
No, I'm saying this fucking episode,
I
man.
know. When I remember this episode, I remember this plane crash happening much later
Mm-hmm.
and being confused why they were throwing this in now. In reality, it's halfway through the episode. So I give it a bit more credit that, yes, you can have this plot twist halfway through. Further on than that does not work. But this is right on the cusp of where it could work.
Yeah. It's just so
Please
jarring
continue.
to me. But yeah, in a plane, two men are looking for a place to set a small biplane down. The older of the two is grasping a briefcase. Without warning, they tumble out of the sky and crash in some trees because, you know, it's the X-Files. There's got to be trees.
Yes.
It's got to be a tree line,
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah.
That morning, the agents arrive at the accident site. They haven't been able to ID the pilot. The second passenger was Dr. Gerald Larson. He delivered the sheriff's boy. The sheriff points them to the briefcase, which is now full of half-scorched money. The doctor was delivering more than just babies, Mulder says. Scully finds a pouch with some meds and smells the liquid.
Why does she smell this vial?
She just passes
That's
out.
right. Oh, ether. Boom. It's like they forget she's a doctor with scientific training. When she did that, I was like, what on earth are you doing, Scully?
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Well, you know, she just likes to get in there.
You can't stop her.
They begin wondering if this has anything to do with what's been happening with the kids. Back at their apartment, Mulder and Scully put together some facts. Dr. Larson had delivered and treated each of the victims throughout childhood. On top of that, there were printouts in the briefcase, and they found papers with shipping orders, credit cards tied to at least one person in each victim's family. The questions are, what was he treating and what with? Mulder dismisses their initial thoughts about the growth hormone, and they are left to ponder. Back at the farm, we see the men who were injecting the cattle closing up for the day. The suspicious man from earlier drives off and passes someone in a blue sedan. He looks familiar. The blue sedan pulls up to the other farmer and shoots him point blank. He walks away.
I'm sorry. You can't just pass by that. It's ridiculous.
Well, we gotta.
I know because the episode does, but it's ridiculous. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
I know that's kind of how he works, right? He just drives into a machine.
He just
into a
does shit.
Sees a dude, shoots him, and then drives away because that's what you do with Deep Throat. But
This guy executes more people
it's
in
like
a year.
if you're there to clean up a mess, don't create another mess
Exactly.
because like
Or at least dispose of the
dispose
body.
of the body. No, he just boom and then goes away.
Just walks away.
That's ridiculous.
I'm the cleaner.
Yeah.
Kind of.
The cows will eat him. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's so over the top. Like I get what they're trying to do by presenting him as a badass that he would just go and do this, but it's so stupid.
That's just one of the stupid things. Andrew.
Anyway, Crew Cut Man is back. Yay! Mythology
Crew
is suddenly
Cut
being
Man.
injected like bovine growth hormone into this episode.
Exactly. Scully arrives at Gary's house to speak with the mom. She wants to know if Gary was ever sick, and the mom says something crazy. He has never been sick a day in his life. Not once. His father was concerned that he wasn't growing, so he began going to this doctor. While this is happening, Mulder notes a dot of light down in the other room. A light is shining through the mirror. He holds up his hand and notes something. He breaks the mirror to find a small room with dozens of VHS tapes. Yuck. Cut to generic rock. The sheriff's boy and a friend are getting drunk in his truck. Someone lurks outside. Apparently, he's okay with his girlfriend having been attacked. He's just living it up
I
still.
didn't even connect the dots on that. But yeah, he's
He's just going on with life, getting drunk and hanging out
you
with
know
friends.
what? Let's go and commemorate old Katie.
Not there and being supportive for his recently drugged girlfriend.
Well, as we have learned, the injections of BGH and the boys have made them monsters.
Absolute monsters.
Yeah.
So they're getting drunk in the truck. Someone is lurking outside. His friend goes to take a piss, and as the kid travels a ridiculous distance to go take this pee, the sheriff's son is chloroformed, and we see it is the creepy cow injector man. For sure this time.
Mm-hmm.
That morning, the sheriff arrives on scene to his deputies surrounding a body. It's his son. He is one scrawled on the back. As the sheriff rolls him over, his eyes are wide. The boy is dead.
Did you notice that? I think Rick is the name of the kid. His friend is there. He's like 4 feet away from the corpse, picking his thumbnail, and it's like, why is this kid still here?
They didn't take him away from the disturbing sight of his friend.
Kid, you may need to stick around for identification or 3.
Do you want a high C or Capri Sun? Anything?
Yeah.
Can I get you anything?
You didn't write this on the boy there, did you? This little thing that you kids do?
Yeah. So after we find out Rick is dead.
Yeah. Shot through the temple, it looks like. Or right in the noggin.
Yeah. The man in the blue sedan unlocks his trunk.
His drunk.
Unlocks his trunk and puts his gun away. Commercial. Gert Thomas.
I missed this scene for whatever reason. I must have been writing notes when it happened.
It's super short. You could blink and miss it, so I don't blame you.
So he's the gun guy.
Yeah. Gert Thomas is the owner of Gary's house. It's the creepy man we've been seeing. He used to run a daycare center out of this house, which makes him even more disgusting.
Well, it's the glasses.
As they drive.
It's the glasses which cast him as a
It's always the
pedophile.
fucking glasses.
Yeah.
Always the glasses.
Yeah.
As they drive, Mulder and Scully pass the man in the blue sedan. Scully catches him and recognizes him, but she can't place him. Mulder interrogates Gert. He kidnapped those kids. He's prepared to confess to his crimes, but he never murdered anybody. Mulder pushes pictures of Rick's body over to him. Gert says he loved those kids. He kidnapped them and wrote those things on their backs because they had become monsters. Scully remembers the man's face suddenly. He's the same man who shot and killed Deep Throat. She removes herself from the interrogation. As the interrogation continues, we find out that Dr. Larson was using everyone as guinea pigs to inoculate the population. He was paid a lot of money to inject those cattle with something, but they didn't know what it was. It was only after the violence and rapes that Gert put things together. Larson felt personally responsible for what the kids had done, and he was giving them the same inoculations. He didn't care about the kids like I did, apparently, Gert says. It's disgusting. Scully summons Mulder. She actually believes him.
Yeah, I think he's telling the truth. I don't think he killed anyone.
How can you be sure?
I just got the toxicology report back on the broken vial. The residual substance couldn't be analyzed because it contains synthetic corticosteroids with unidentified amino acids. That's purity control, Mulder.
Do you know what you're saying, Scully?
The man who died in that plane crash was inoculating those kids with antibodies derived from what may have been an extraterrestrial source.
He's been injecting those kids with alien DNA.
No, Mulder, that was never proven conclusively.
But it's the same substance we found in the Erlenmeyer flask, isn't it? The same material my Deep Throat contact died for.
Yes.
Well, it all makes sense. The money in the briefcase. They've been conducting an experiment here. Somebody's been paying to have those kids injected with alien DNA to see how they'd react. It's been going on for years.
Does that man know anything about it?
No. He's just some poor soul who blew their cover. I don't think he knows any more than he's telling us.
Well, I think his boss must have, because they just found him shot to death in a cow pasture.
What?
I think I know who shot him, Mulder. That man that I recognized on the road today. That's the same man that executed Deep Throat.
Well, whoever's behind this, he's here covering their tracks. He's gonna go after the kids. You get the sheriff and meet me at Gary Cain's apartment. And Scully. I want this guy alive.
This is where the plot gets so convoluted at this point. And it's because Chris Carter wanted to shoehorn in purity control. Mm-hmm. Is this the right episode to do this in, right? Like,
no.
It's so, you have a good episode in the offing with the idea that the bovine growth hormone is making people, like, that's the agenda that you're trying to set. That it's making people crazy, it's making them more violent, all the rest. And then you decide to switch gears and say, oh, actually, it's not bovine growth hormone, it's purity control. That's the thing that's at play here. But if that's the case, and they're going to send a dude in to fix the problem, to cover it up, they're going to send in one guy and his method is just to kill everybody? Like, it's so ham-handed.
Well, yeah. It's a little ridiculous. It's also ridiculous. It's too convenient for me in the sense that, of course, he's showing up as Mulder and Scully are on scene.
Yeah.
So, they have to, of course.
Unrelated case. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, could it get any more convenient that these two would run into each other?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I get that maybe the syndicate thought, all right, we've got this purity control. Let's find a test area that we can try it out on kids. But the implication is that they have been injecting these kids with it since they were born. So, like, this is a long-standing test. And I don't know if killing the kids is the way to cover it up. I don't know. It's all the tenets of, like, it's just got to be violent because that's what the plot demands. But as far as a cover-up goes, not a very good one.
Well, they only kill Rick, right?
No, they kill that farmhand.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if the idea was to kill the kids that were being given this hormone, is that?
Well, the extrapolation is that the reason they take the kids to the Red Museum is to keep them safe because Mulder thinks that they're all targets.
Yeah.
I'll have thoughts on that too.
I don't know that I believe that. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So later that night, Mulder arrives at Gary's house. He tells them to pack some things quickly. Some officers arrive. He tells the sheriff to get everyone with credit card numbers on that list packed up and moved. When he asks where, we cut to Odin's house. Mulder pleads with them to let the kids, the meat eaters, stay in sanctuary. Odin allows this. The children and parents pile into the barn church, wary of each other and of the Red Museum congregation.
Can you explain to me why Mulder thinks that this is the place to shelter everybody?
The only thing this is one problem that I don't really have with the episode is I kind of buy this because the church is just a big central location that they could house these kids. And he realizes now that Odin didn't have anything to do with what's been happening.
I don't think we have established that, sir.
I think he has at this point because they've already found their guy.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, they found the actual person who has scrawled the "he is one, she is one" things, but
and drugging kids and
yeah, fair. But all I was going to suggest is there are probably a dozen ranches in the area, and the other ones probably have a lot of weapons to defend people with, as opposed to
maybe he thought the added defense of hundreds of non-violent believers would save the kids from anyone with a gun.
That's not sound military strategy.
It's Operation Meat Shield.
Yeah,
for the meat eaters.
They will take a bullet for these meat eaters. I can see that. They're going to
take a very ironic name.
They're going to take their 500 head of cattle and they're just going to make a defensive wall around everybody. That crew cut guy is going to have to shoot 500 head of cattle to get at these kids.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
I think we're onto something here.
I think that the plot is definitely contriving this situation to force these two sides together into an uneasy
so they can
piece.
Become friends.
And they're going to grow. They're going to share stories. And they're going to learn from each other.
And we're not going to hear anything about it.
No.
for another 20 years.
It's not going to make a lick of difference to the plot, but okay. Honestly,
They're now friends.
It's the worst plot angle so far. It's like, bring them to the police station. I don't know. That seems like a safe place.
That's not safe.
No, fair.
Oh, man.
I take issue with this plot element.
Fair. Very fair. So Mulder arrives at JSD Beef. Unholstering his weapon, he heads inside. It's dark, save for a single red light. Mulder moves through the meat processing plant between steer that are strung up to find a can of gasoline. He moves on. Hearing a noise in the distance, he pursues. Another gas tank with a newspaper fuse. Spotting the man, he attempts to subdue him, but the man flees. After a quick game of cat and mouse, the man kicks Mulder, knocking him and his gun away. He locks Mulder in the locker, and he goes to start a fire. Scully presents herself. She has him. The sheriff and his deputies behind her. The sheriff begins firing, crying at the death of his son. We see Crew Cut Man on the floor, dead. Mulder gets freed and dismisses everyone from the premises. Okay.
R.I.P.
The Crew Cut Man dies off screen, and I'm really upset about it.
I have no real issue with that, just because you know what happens.
But we wanted that, not even a showdown, just we wanted Mulder to come face to face with Deep Throat's Killer. At least I did.
Okay, fair.
In some capacity. And I was very disappointed when he didn't get that. Because as the viewer, I wanted that for some sort of closure to Deep Throat's story. You know, some sort of revenge, I guess. But
yeah,
this was just, and I won't go too much into it right now, but
yeah,
what are you doing?
Well,
Chris Carter. Okay.
The only thing I can think is that for whatever reason, they only had that actor available. Lindsay Ginter is his name, the Crew Cut Man. They only had him available for a very limited window, and then he was going to be unavailable to him for a long time. And so they found themselves at a point where they're like, if we're going to do something with Crew Cut Man, we've got to do it now or in the next 2 months or whatever. So we'll write a story which includes him, and then there will be a showdown or there will be a confrontation.
Some resolution.
Now, this is not your typical hero-villain confrontation because Mulder was unconscious. No. So, if anything, it should have been a showdown between Scully and the Crew Cut Man because she saw it happen.
Well, yeah. Yeah, all three of them.
But they have hamstrung themselves by having the sheriff be the instrument of vengeance because he's there for whatever reason. I mean, come on, your son's just been killed. You're not going to take a couple days, but all right. And he's triggered by the fact the guy is lighting the thing and he's going to set the place on fire. So he takes him out. Like that is the inciting incident. The villain brings it upon himself. Thus it is an honorable killing.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's really,
it's just disappointing.
It's a real odd fit. It would have been better, I suppose, if Scully had been the instrument of vengeance, but
that would have been cool.
She's the one who gets to shoot the gun, honestly. Like, all the episodes we've seen so far, I think Mulder has, he's shot his gun a couple of times and he's never hit anything. So she's the crack shot.
That's true. She is a crack shot.
Yeah.
As we will find out in the final episode of this season.
Yeah. Anyway, it's strange. And again, it's this case of the script, which has so many things just jammed together in it, and thus none of them really work. Like, and what do the agents actually do? I suppose they save the kids, but like
in a way they save the kids and they unravel this story or this conspiracy to a point where they, at least the townsfolk, have some answers as to what's going on. They obviously don't go into I can imagine they don't go into any in-depth description of alien DNA and stuff like that. But they capture Gert and they take care of Crew Cut Man, and whether or not they did that themselves, so there is some resolution. And I do believe they impacted the story at least some way.
In some way.
In this episode. So,
but only because the plane fell out of the sky. It's like, if that didn't happen.
So how would this episode have ended if
that didn't happen? Like, none of this would have been unraveled. It's so strange. So did the crew cut man sabotage the plane? Is that another part of this cleaning up business? Is it purely a bad pilot?
It's a terrible pilot.
It must be. The engine's failing. I don't know why. Strange.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Let's head for the trees.
All right. Do you want to wrap it up here?
So, okay, as the episode ends, we get a Scully voiceover. The crew cut man cannot be identified by any means at this time. She doubts anyone will come forward to claim the body. She goes over the substance in the vial, likely synthetic, but it cannot be deeply analyzed. The children are believed to have been inoculated. To date, none of the Red Museum congregation have contracted any sickness. The FBI investigation is open and unsolved.
Bum, bum, bum.
Let's just dive into final thoughts, sir.
All right.
What do you think?
The one word that describes this plot for me is convoluted.
Word of the day.
Yeah. So many ideas at play here, some that could have been completely scrubbed from the plot, and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. In fact, it probably would have made it clearer and easier to follow. We have seen this in a lot of other episodes. The agents are tourists in the area. When things happen, follow the pieces to a resolution they didn't actually have any control over. The connection with purity control is marvelously coincidental, and I'm kind of surprised the syndicate only sent the one guy to clean up the whole situation. It's just a bunch of odd turns, ending with the bizarre choice to use the Red Museum Ranch as the place of safety. On the whole, not one of their finest efforts, but it has the usual selection of interesting moments that give you something to enjoy. Otherwise, completely forgettable. I don't think I would rewatch this one.
It's a rough one. As you say, word of the day is convoluted. I have that here in my notes. And I almost put it in the intro to the show, but I don't think I did. So,
you did put it in the intro to the show.
Did I? Did I? I couldn't remember. Okay, well, it is.
Yeah.
So, word of the day. And I just want to say that Chris Carter, for all of his writing prowess at times, you know, I would say more often than not, he's very good at this stuff. And this episode just strikes as evidence of he's in over his head at some level, because it's just like he's shoving so much stuff in this. There are some films out there that think that being confusing means it's really good.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's kind of what this suffers from. There's so much in here that it can be confusing and overwhelming, especially on your first watch. And that does not mean it's good. So I think Chris Carter sometimes suffers from, let's just keep piling shit in and worry about the details later. And that is not a good place to be. This episode is extremely convenient in that purity control comes in. As I said before, Crew Cut Man just happens to be cleaning up this mess as the agents are summoned to this town randomly. Yes, I know it's all somewhat loosely tied together, and Gert's involvement has just derailed this whole alien experiment. But
yeah. That's Mulder's explanation, is that this is just this hapless guy who happened to get involved has derailed it, and thus they needed to come in and clean it up. But honestly, they probably could have just left it alone and it would have been fine.
Yeah, just let it sort itself out. There's a syndicate. They really don't care that much.
Yeah.
The episode takes some weird turns, and I wonder what your take is on this, but it probably is in contention with Young at Heart for the most convoluted episode so far.
Ooh. As you know, I have a special place in my heart for Young at Heart. No, I think Young at Heart is worse. At least here they're trying, and mythology always gives a bit of a leg up, you know, because you have a lot to draw on.
Yeah. I will say this episode, as ridiculous as it is and convoluted as it is, it makes some sense. Like, I can draw the connective tissue in this episode much better than, say, Young at Heart, where there's just a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
But for that being said, it's still like, this is way too convenient, way too loose.
Yeah.
Overall, it's just a forgettable episode. And the biggest upset for me is, again, Crew Cut Man getting iced off screen by a no-name sheriff, pretty much. it's unfortunate Scully and Mulder could not have that final showdown, whether it's a gunfight or a war of words. And Deep Throat's Killer is eventually just given this weird send-off. So
I think so. I always come to a place of what would have made this a better episode. You know, what could you have done differently to make it a better episode? And I think the obvious trope of the vengeful father is just such an easy direction to go. They could have gone to a place where the crew cut man just surrenders. He's like, I'm surrounded. I know I'm not going to win this. I'm going to die. It's not worth it. So he puts down his thing and they take him into custody and he just disappears in the system, you know, and allowed that to be a card they could play later. But they turn him from this Terminator style character to kind of a dummy because he's like, he's surrounded by a bunch of people with guns and they're telling him to not do the thing he's going to do. And he goes to do it. And I mean, dad on edge, you know, maybe you were never going to control that, but you know, ices him just because it's like you were going to burn us all. So I totally had license to kill you. So I think that was like you, I dislike the fact that they decided to take out that villain that way. I think they could have had a lot more interesting direction with that character as opposed to this tropey ending.
Well, not to mention, we all know he's a dedicated syndicate member.
Yeah.
But your game is over. You're surrounded by people with guns, like you said. So you're going to go sacrifice yourself just to make sure this whole thing succeeds after your death. I believe that to a certain extent, but I don't believe it in this instance where you're just going to blow yourself up along with a town's worth of police officers and FBI agents. It's just like,
And what does he actually...
You're going to draw more attention to your criminal conspiracy.
Yeah, he's left a trail of dead bodies. He's like, has he killed all the cows that they've injected the hormone into? Like, taking out the meat processing plant actually doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But
the better move is to let yourself get arrested and the syndicate will come get you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you know they're able to. And you know what's going to happen.
There's this cool scene in the making. I think they've even already done it where it's like, they're interrogating him in the room and he says in 5 minutes, there's going to be a phone call and I'm walking out of here. And then the phone call happens, right? Because that is the long arm of the syndicate. But no, they've cast him very strangely here. I think that they were limited by their availability with the actor and they just had to make this resolution happen, whether it was right or not. And that's where it came from.
Even still, man. Just don't use him. Like we're talking about.
Yeah.
Don't use him for a while. Yeah. Don't write him into the show.
Yeah.
And then you can bring him back.
Or make a different episode. It's like, why?
Yeah. Option 1, make a different episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about listener comments today?
Comments. There are a couple here. Shall we start with Emily Messenger? Who says that... I always liked that Red Museum was actually a mythology episode masquerading as a monster of the week. I love the scene where Scully recognizes Crew Cut Man, and this is also the first mention of walk-ins, which, as we all know, becomes a much bigger... I don't know if I know that. Maybe I did know that. As we all know, becomes a much bigger deal in season 7. Early season mentions of things like walk-ins, superior soldiers, hybrids that can breathe underwater, etc. really do a good job of setting some things up for later seasons, whether they intended to or not. Yeah, it's fair.
I can appreciate it on that level. They do try to bring walk-ins back. Okay, so I can get on board with the fanboyness of that. Where in season 7, I'm like, oh, season 2.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it reminds me of this episode.
Yes.
So it kind of loses some cachet.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you can draw from your own playbook on anything. And they certainly do in this show. So sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that the two can be directly connected. They can just say the same the term walk-ins in season 7 and be like, oh, we've heard that before. Yeah.
Josh says, Red Museum is a bit meh to me. Some good moments, but didn't really ever feel like it knew what it wanted to be as an episode. Agreed. There's a lot of mythology along with a somewhat convoluted Monster of the Week plot and never really landed for me. The writing on the victims is probably the only thing that really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a nice touch.
I think we've already said it. There's a better episode in here before the mythology stuff. So
take out the mythology stuff.
They take that growth hormone stuff and it makes for an interesting episode.
I mean, it's interesting that he chose to get up on his high horse about bovine growth hormone and then kind of reverse course on it by saying, oh no, it's not actually bovine growth hormone. It's an alien.
It's alien DNA. Or maybe it's opening our eyes to what's actually happening.
That's right. BGH is fine people. Aaron M. Haycroft said, I remember watching Red Museum when it first aired because I'm old and generally getting excited the moment Scully noticed the crew cut man. I'm a hoard of continuity, and throwing it in on an otherwise out-of-nowhere episode is the kind of thing I loved on the pre-internet mid-90s. It's fair. That sort of goes hand in hand with the comment that this was mythology masquerading as Monster of the Week, but I think because Chris Carter wrote the episode, he had license to do that.
He does. Yeah. He does that sometimes. And again, to draw it back to Young at Heart, they try to bring CSM in at the end and Deep Throat and give it some agency in the mythology world, but doesn't always work.
It's not one that really, like, you could have skipped this episode and you wouldn't miss anything as far as mythology is concerned.
Exactly. Yeah. You really wouldn't miss anything.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say people would just kind of forget that Crew Cut Man existed.
Yeah. He doesn't have a role. Not really.
He doesn't really. I mean, they don't really draw attention to him after this, and they don't draw attention to him before. He's just in Erlenmeyer Flask, right? So he kills Deep Throat. It's unfortunate. He kidnaps Mulder. Okay, I remember him from that. But is he really a name that you're going to remember in the show? No, not necessarily. So if you skip this episode, he would just fade into obscurity at that point. Matt Conrad says, I like Red Museum probably more than it deserves. Not much to say about it, really, I guess. I'm just a sucker for hidden rooms behind mirrors with camcorders and piles of VHS tapes.
Who isn't, really?
The authorities are being set to your house, Matt.
It's been nice
as we speak
having you as a listener, but please.
We hope you listen from prison.
You get Apple Podcasts in your cell, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, are we closing the doors on the museum? Is it closing time? Time to exit through the gift shop?
Gift shop is about to close doors, so grab your pamphlets and your keychains.
Yep.
I think the keychains would be like tomahawk steaks or something with little key rings on them.
Yeah, I think you could offend a whole bunch of people all at once if you did it that way.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, I've certainly had fun with this episode, as weird as it is.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Andrew, if you would like to say goodbye to the dear listeners, please do so.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to our podcast. I hope that you reflect upon the meaningful words that you have heard tonight in our review of the Red Museum, and then never watch this episode ever again.
We'll see you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at TINHXFilesPod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming.